Joe, welcome to the Democratizing SEO podcast. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing well. How are you?
Yes, very well, thanks. Thank you so much for your time today. I came across you on LinkedIn and I thought you'd be a very interesting person to speak with around about digital PR. As I like to do with all my guests, I like to ask how they got into SEO, or in this case, SEO slash digital PR in the first place. So with that said, what led you to become a digital PR professional?
It was sort of accidental, really. I worked as a journalist in London for a number of years. Like a lot of journalists, I got made redundant. A lot of media layoffs in the mid 2000s. And then I moved up north and I started working for a VPN affiliate site, just editing content online, essentially. We had a PR department. When the leader of that PR department left, they asked me if I wanted to take over the role. Obviously, VPN affiliate sites worked with, a lot of SEO input. SEO was kind of the main play. So we really combined kind of the traditional PR that we had been doing as a company previously with a more kind of SEO led PR. We weren't really calling it digital PR at the time. So I was doing it kind of before I knew the name, I guess. And that's kind of how I got started in digital PR slash SEO.
Okay, I think that's better now.
Amazing. Are we good?
Yes, I think we're good. I've had this is the third time this has happened now with Riverside. I think they must be doing some sort of update in the background. I'll get in touch with them again. Last time they said to check my settings, my end, and it was all good. So I thought it would be fine for this recording, but it's happened again. So it's
Yeah, I was going to say, I did check the connection. I've plugged everything in my end, so hopefully it's not me.
definitely the Riverside system. Okay, never mind. So digital PR, why digital
Mhm.
out of everything? You could, like, as a journalist, you could have, I'm sure, gotten into content writing, but you chose digital PR. Is there a story behind it?
I think there's an immense skill to content writing and working in sort of content SEO. But I think what kind of drew me more down the digital, because that's where I was intentionally going, I guess. That's
Right.
where kind of the plan was with my career. But I think what led me down the digital PR path more was the fast-paced nature of it. I think working as a journalist is incredibly intense. It's fast-paced. There's a lot happening at once. You have to do 3 or 4 things at a time, and that's not for everybody, by the way. A lot of people would find that an intensely stressful environment. But I kind of thrive in that environment. I think the kind of patience and the skill of content is probably not the right place for me. I have great respect for the people that kind of do these big content pieces and kind of work in content teams, but I think I would get bored, is the honest answer. Digital PR is quick. You have to do multiple things in one day. And I love that. It keeps my brain working. It keeps me interested. It keeps me kind of learning and on the ball. So.
Okay. Okay. So tell me about your favorite way or method or aspect about link building.
I love newsjacking. I could talk about it all day. I think it's a fascinating kind of process. I like the exchange of it. So I like that idea that I understand, I guess, from having been a journalist, big news story breaks, you've got to be first, you've got to be really quick, and you need content within that news. You need analysis, you need data. You need to be able to add context around a news story. It's not just saying, X, Y, Z has happened. You need kind of context around that so that the reader can understand. And what we can then offer from a digital PR perspective on behalf of our clients is that context, is that, the expert analysis, the expert, data, all these little things that kind of really give a fuller picture for a journalist and for their readers. And it's that game of seeing a story kind of break or begin to break, thinking, right, how does that apply to my client? Where does my client's expertise fit into this narrative? And what can we offer? What is it we can offer to a journalist, that they will then think, okay, do you know what? We want this piece of information. We'll take it, we'll use it. Hopefully they'll give us a link as well. That's what we're always aiming for. And that kind of game of it, sometimes it is just about being first. Sometimes it's about having a different angle to everyone else, and working out what it is you can provide to that journalist, and in exchange for that link.
So these days, right, everyone knows when a digital PR person contacts them as a publisher, right? The digital PR person is essentially seeking eventually to ideally get a link, right? And as a publisher, publishers know this. So what is it about link building these days that you find still either motivates or influences a publisher to want to give a link?
This is such a difficult one, and you'll get so many different answers to this. Like there's the kind of more, the technical answer, like what are you providing? We speak a lot about kind of landing pages and having kind of hubs on page which have data and content that will encourage that link back, link bait as we'd call it. Sometimes it's as simple as just being nice. Journalists are busy too. They're humans too. Sometimes it's just if you're not pushy and you're not aggressive and, you ask nicely. Sometimes it's just that, catching a journalist on a good day versus a bad day, stuff that perhaps you can't control. It is a complex, multi-layered kind of, unspoken agreement, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it is difficult. I would be, I'd be remiss to sit here and say, oh, that's really easy. Just ask them and they give it to you. I think what a lot of people don't understand. Yeah, if only, right? I wouldn't be sitting here talking about it. I think what a lot of people fail to understand is the nuances of how newsrooms work. And even myself now, I talk about kind of my own experience being helpful, but it's massively out of date. When I left newsrooms, everyone went in every day. Obviously we all live in the world of hybrid work from home. And the kind of hierarchy of a newsroom is probably very different. The day-to-day kind of process is very different, but it's rarely as under the control of a journalist as perhaps we might think. Sometimes it is. Sometimes they can go and put a link in, but then their sub-editor might take it out. Newsrooms have their own SEO teams. They have their own opinions on where they want to be linking to and what they don't want to be linking to. They might take it out. So it is a hard process with many different variables to control.
As a publisher, if I'm providing a link, right, there's a clear benefit to the person receiving the link. Can you define or state or give reasons as to why it will benefit me as the publisher to link to someone?
Yeah, I think it goes back to, I guess it's kind of sort of Google law now that the concept of links was essentially taken from the idea of kind of academic publishing, right? Where you would have to reference your sources, otherwise something wouldn't be trustworthy or it wouldn't be taken seriously. And I think particularly in the world we live in now where, news publishers and, journalists in general are under, a lot of pressure to demonstrate that what they're, the information they're sharing is correct, that it's not disinformation. I think if we kind of strip it back to that providing a link is providing kind of evidence of your source, where your source came from, that's the SEO benefit, the trust that, it shows that they are speaking to relevant sources, that they're getting the information from relevant places. That doesn't let us as off the hook as digital PRs. We need to be providing, relevant information. It needs to be coming from a relevant expert. We can't be just shoehorning anyone in there to get a link. We both have a role to play here in ensuring that linking is used correctly in Google's eyes, right? But there is definite, there is definite linking best practice that news publishers should be following and linking to sources and experts and, and where data comes from is one of them.
So, okay. So all of that sounds great, right? But if I may publisher, I can provide all of that as a citation without it having to be a link. What is the influence for me to have that citation a link?
And this is the age-old question, digital PR, isn't it? Yes.
$1 million question,
journalists
right?
Journalists have had to, name their sources or not name their sources, depending on the context for since publishing began, since we were, the dead paper industry, long before hyperlinks were imagined. So it is journalistic standard and journalistic practice to cite where information comes from, and to cite who is speaking or who is providing a quote. It is, and this is an issue, I think, with newsjacking particularly. Like, if you just provide a really quick bit of information, why should they link to that? I do think that, particularly, like I said, in this world of disinformation, being able to link back to who a source is can be really helpful for readers, particularly when we're talking kind of your money or your life kind of sites, or your money or life information. Mm-hmm. If we're speaking to a financial expert, you could probably want to know where they've come from, who they are, be able to link, even if it's just to an About Us page, that kind of explains who that source is beneficial to the reader, right?
Right.
Google tells us all the time we're meant to be listening, that what we're doing is meant to be beneficial to the reader. I think that is beneficial to the reader. I think, I think it is that, trust again, news publishers have to play the SEO game as well. It's not just about being a newspaper, it is about being a website. So showing that they understand that their sources are trustworthy by providing a link. They've got options, right? If they're not entirely sure it's someone they want to pass that trust metric across to, whatever, there's no follow options, right? But I think, I would say this, right? I'm biased, so I think it would make the world a better place if they understood the benefits for them of linking as well as the benefits for us. I guess the less perhaps fluffy answer to that is, we also do a lot of work for them that perhaps journalists don't have the time to do as much these days. By the time I left journalism, it was a pretty intense job. I think I was having to write, in a kind of standard day, I was expected to get maybe seven articles on page, and it's not just a case of getting those articles on page, right? We were doing our own SEO for them. We were sharing them across socials. We were responding in the comments if that was required of us. So it is that value exchange. We're kind of doing a bit of the heavy lifting for them. We're getting them the context. We're getting them the data, or, in some cases, the entire story, if it's a big hero campaign. The exchange then is that they provide a link in order for us. They help us, we help them. It's that's the value exchange of link building via digital PR.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to the value, right, you can value a link in different ways. Bottom line, and especially in certain industries like gaming and finance, right? Those are two very aggressive industries when it comes to link building, and they don't mince their words, right? As you know, right? They don't mince their words, right? The bottom line is it comes down to money, right? And it comes down to what is the cost of a link, of acquiring a link. Do you find that you have clients that simply say, okay, what is the cost of a link these days?
Oh yeah, definitely. And it is a really difficult one. Like, it's a bit of an educational piece from what I make it very clear what I do is earned media. I'm never going to go pay for a link. They can, you can get people that's their job and you can pay them to do that. I can't do that. That's not what I do. It would damage the trust between the relationship I have with journalists. It's not what I do. So I have to make that very clear to clients quite early on. And there are some that get it and there are some that don't. And even the clients that perhaps don't get it kind of know they have to play along anyway. You talk about sort of aggressive kind of industries, your iGaming, this kind of stuff. They really do need those links, and they understand that to get the very high quality links these days, digital PR is the approach. They perhaps don't really care about the kind of PR angle of it, or they perhaps don't care about what goes into it, but they know that it's a means to an end for them. They want those really high value links. And they know that digital PR will probably get those links in a way that perhaps older forms of link building, guest posts, etc. won't. So that they'll kind of, they know that it's a means to an end. They perhaps don't care about the bit in the middle and what it takes to do that. They just want to get the link.
Yeah. So, okay, what is the value then for a client seeking digital PR? If it isn't just a pure cost per link type of value or metric, what metric is used as a sign of success?
I mean, again, this is one of those $1 million questions. Metrics for success in digital PR is much debated, and a lot of the kind of softer metrics are things like brand, the kind of trust, expertise, the kind of stuff that falls under E is really kind of hard to measure. And that, that's historic in PR. PR was always, used to have really weird kind of fluffy metrics in PR, like number of eyeballs, and you'll see kind of like the jokes about it and stuff. But, we know that brand building is valuable, right? We all know that. We all know that we all know why we go and buy Nikes versus something else. We know that brand makes us make decisions. We know that brand builds trust and, brand loyalty and all these things that, because we see the results in our everyday lives, and we all have brand loyalty, whether it be to Coca-Cola over Pepsi or, Nike over Adidas. We see the impact of that in our everyday life. But, when you're talking to people that have, numbers people, and they want their metrics and they want their charts, it can be quite hard to, I hate this as well. That I really struggle with, it's one of those conversations I have day in, day out. Sometimes you have to go, look, you just have to trust the process here, right? We know it works. We know it has value. And you can see by the kind of people that invest heavily in digital PR, they do see it has value. A lot of, we're seeing big names now invest quite heavily in digital PR. They do see the value of it. They see the reach that it gets and the impact that it gets. And, yes, we've got a kind of classic link building metrics, your DAs and etc. But, there is a value beyond that. And I'm passionate about it. I think it's really important. I think that, we talk a lot in marketing about different touch points, right? And we're seeing, you have to see a brand name something like 7 times in 7 different places before you're kind of likely to kind of follow a customer journey with them. So I do believe it has value, but it is a difficult thing to kind of, turn into a metric.
Yeah, I always find that showing a client what their competitors are doing is a sure sign for them to say, okay, regardless of what their hard metrics are, this is something we must be doing because all our competitors are doing. If not value, then in terms of, let's say signs, right? What are the signs that this digital PR, whether it's a campaign or an overall investment, is worth it?
Oh, I mean, so a lot of people, and this sort of predates digital PR. This kind of goes into kind of advertising area. People talk about like the pub test, or people talking about something down the pub. As a campaign kind of had that kind of cut through where people are actually discussing it. Are people sharing it organically on social? I think one of the really good campaign I saw recently, and it's one of the ones I wish I'd thought of, and perfectly relevant. I think it was the RAC, and they'd done the cost of airport parking, and the value of the cost of airport parking, and how it had gone up, and the different airports. And it was one of those ones that had that emotion, that thing of, well, hang on, like, I know how much it cost to drop someone off at Stansted versus Liverpool. Everyone gets wound up about it. What is it, like £7 now for 5 minutes? And it's emotive, right? It's something that winds people up. It's something that people will discuss. It has kind of that cut through. They found a problem that winds people up, and that people will talk about it, and they've done a big campaign around it. Finding a problem in an industry that other people are having, and whether that's because your friends have talked about it, or it winds you up personally. Is it something people complain about on Reddit? That's those kind of campaigns are the campaigns that I think are successful because people remember them because of the emotion behind it.
You mentioned newsjacking earlier. I'm sure people know what it means, but if you can just briefly explain what it is and also how it's different to reactive PR.
So news jacking and react, sometimes these tend to be used quite interchangeably. We have a bit of a thing in digital PR where you'll see, people in different agencies or different roles use kind of terms, and it's all like, it's confusing if you're in digital PR. I can't imagine what it's like if you're not. So to me, so I'll preface this with, to me, news jacking is a very simple process where you wait for a story to break, and you respond to it really quickly. No fluff here. Quite simple email to the journalist that will be writing about this kind of big news story with expert comment, or a little piece of data that can back up one side of the argument, or really kind of quick, no fluff, very quick turnaround. I think you're talking about 30 minutes to an hour to news jack successfully these days, because everyone's trying to do it now, right? So it's competitive.
Yeah.
Reactive PR can be a bit more thoughtful and a bit more thought out. So reactive PR could be something like, I don't know, what's the big Netflix thing at the moment? I'm a bit out of the loop. So when we saw Bridgerton, for example, was everywhere on Netflix, everyone's talking about Bridgerton. If I worked for a lingerie company or a bedding company, I would be doing a reactive PR piece around, Bridgerton corsets you can buy, how to make a Bridgerton bedroom, that kind of thing. That's reactive. You've got to be quick in the sense that, you can't sit on that idea for 3 months and spend hours getting sign off and budget for it, because it's only going to be trendy or in the news for a week, 2 weeks. So that's the difference to me. Reactive, you've got a bit more time to play with. Newsjacking, it's in real time. You've got to do it as the story is developing, essentially.
Which is better to use, and also when?
So I enjoy both. I think that the key definition or the key distinction for me is probably, with newsjacking, it's more hard news. So if you've got finance clients, or, that tends to do better with newsjacking. If you've got sort of clients in the crypto space again, or anything kind of more hard news, more serious, is better for newsjacking. And anything that's a bit more consumer and lifestyle. So if you've got an interiors client, a fashion client, travel kind of clients, that's when, reactive is better. And you're targeting the right kind of people then as well. So if you're doing something around Bridgerton and you want to be in the kind of lifestyle press, that's actually where your consumer are. So that's where you want to be. If you're kind of newsjacking on behalf of a kind of fintech brand, you probably want to be in the Financial Times, or you want to be in the kind of, I don't know, the finance kind of journals and the finance papers, because that's probably where your client is as well. That's where your consumer is reading. So.
You mentioned the competitiveness of newsjacking, and I presume digital PR overall. How competitive is it as compared to, let's say, 5 years ago?
So competitive. And it swings and roundabouts, because I quite like the competitiveness. It pushes you to kind of be better and to be quicker and, more innovative and to think outside the box. But then also, the kind of wins that, I was having when I first started this, now I would celebrate a lot more than I almost took things for granted. I look back at some of the kind of links and the coverage I built early on in my career and was a bit like, okay, yeah, it could do better. Now I would be popping the champagne, right? Now it would feel like a bigger win. And that is, in part due to the competitiveness of it, definitely.
So, what is the bar for value higher or lower now that it's more competitive?
I think I should say yes to this. This feels like I feel like the right answer is yes. And that's the answer that you want to portray to people. Definitely you need to, it's not always the case, because it is so, overall yes, but I think that there's so many variables in PR. Like I said, you could, everyone that I'm speaking to is dealing with the out of office emails at the moment, right? Because everyone's on holiday. August is a terrible month to be a digital PR. So is December. out of office, people are away, people are not at their desk. So sometimes it really is as simple as just being lucky, like catching a journalist who's covering a shift for someone who's on holiday, stuff that you can't really control. And sometimes, it is difficult. Sometimes you see stuff in the industry where you think is quite low value or has been done kind of, it's been done quite cynically, and you kind of look at the kind of links and the coverage it's landed and you think, oh my God, I'm here trying to do this really kind of like relevant, good quality work. And, and you kind of see kind of other stuff being done and think, oh my God, like maybe, why am I trying so hard essentially? So it's difficult, and it's, you want to be doing the best for your client. And every client has a different bar for what their best is. Like you said, that some industries, they just want their links. They don't really care how you get it. And some clients, they want good quality, valuable work done. And that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I would always strive to do. But yeah, it's a difficult one. Yeah.
So as a publisher, right, everyone has their own opinion of what value is. So they may see a pitch from a journalist or digital PR person and say, yeah, I like this, but I'm only going to cite this. I'm only going to give a citation. Another time you might get in contact with them and say, oh, this is brilliant. Not only am I going to cite this site that they want me to cite, I'm going to link to the site. And then another time they say, okay, I'm going to link to the specific page that the digital PR person wants me to link to. What is as a publisher, what should I consider as, I'm trying to get down to value, right? To give a set understanding or definition of what value is. How do I judge how valuable a piece will be?
Sometimes it can feel quite arbitrary. I think we spoke earlier about like the idea of having kind of like hubs on a page with kind of statistics, data, a media hub essentially where media can go and find this information, and then hopefully they will link back because you've done that work for them. With newsjacking, the value might just be linking to the About Us page for that expert, right? And there are a lot of SEOs that be like, oh, we want to link to a money page, or we don't want to link to an About Us page. It's not but actually from Google's point of view and from the point of view of kind of expertise, experience, authority and trust, that might be a really good place to link to, right? It's drawing those dots between the expert, the relevance, all the things that Google wants to be mapping. So that might be the more logical place to link to. But yeah, sometimes, from my perspective, sometimes it feels quite arbitrary. Sometimes you think, well, they've linked when I've not really provided that much value. It's been quite a simple piece of work.
Yeah.
Or, sometimes you're provide something that you think is intensely valuable. With a landing page where you think, well, they've got to link to this. They'd be, they would not link to this. And they don't. And you're like, why? So it can feel quite arbitrary sometimes. You just have to do your best. I think one of the things that frustrates me, I guess, is, and I see this a lot now, is I see kind of old PR or traditional PR, that will do these kind of big campaigns, and you think, oh my God, this is an amazing campaign. It's got coverage everywhere. No one's linking to it. And I'll go and, nosy. I want to see what, my competitors do. I go and have a look and I think, well, there's no landing page, like, no, there's nowhere to encourage a link or to suggest a link.
And you think, oh, this is such a huge missed opportunity, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think the most recent one for me is Walthamstow Football Club have done I don't know if you saw my LinkedIn, I posted about it, and then I think the web moderator saw it and changed it, and I felt a bit embarrassed after. But Walthamstow Football Club have done a collaboration with William Morris to do their kit for this season. It's incredible. The funds are going to kind of grassroots female football in East London. Amazing collab that got coverage everywhere from, right from Hypebeast to The Guardian, kind of all ends of the spectrum. And no one was linking. And I was thinking, I'm really like a bit gutted for them. Why is no one linking to the Walthamstow website, Walthamstow Football Club website, right? And they hadn't put a landing page for the new kit up. So they'd done all this work on this clearly massive kind of campaign of publicity. You know, they had the photo shoots, kind of the collabs with the influencers, the lot. But they hadn't put a page on the Walthamstow Football Club website where kind of it told you what was going on, or, you know, there's a link to buy the kit, or it was just such a missed opportunity.
Yeah, those situations are such a shame, and it's so you never know whether or not you'll receive a link in the first place, but at least have the opportunity there for it to be provided.
Yeah, exactly. No, definitely. And it's just an education piece about the value of digital PR, and I think sometimes it's that thing of having your SEO team and your digital PR team working together. Or even your traditional PR team and your SEO team working together. Your SEO team could easily explain this quite simply to a traditional PR team, you would assume. And that collaboration that, you know, marketing, whatever kind of, you know, is an umbrella that we all sit under, and we should all be having conversations about how we can collaborate and how we can help each other's KPIs and each other's goals. And yeah, I think a lot of it is you feel like, that was a conversation that didn't happen, and if it happened, things could have been different.
I find that the pushback, especially with SEOs, comes down to defining, again, that term value or metrics, right? When you consider, because SEOs will want to say, okay, anything besides a link is not valuable, let's say. Whereas digital PR will say, no, that's your realm. That's not digital PR realm, right? Citations matter. In some cases, they might even be more important than a link. A link is just like a bonus, right? So it varies widely. And I agree with you regarding the educational aspect of it. I think a lot of the times business leaders are not necessarily aware of the way the two marketing channels work closely together, yet alone SEO as a individual channel. So they always want to focus on what they can, if you like, use as hard targets for their bosses. And it comes down to value again. It comes down to, okay, what's the cost per link, for example, and these hard metrics, which it's not the way, it's hard to explain, right? It's not the way this works. This isn't like PPC where you can have input, output. It's very, very different. And with that educational aspect, you're always going to have battles. And I find that the education is what subsides those battles.
Yeah, 100%. I think, you're right that the whole, it's not performance marketing the way something like PPC is, where you, like you said, you put something in, you get something out, you can kind of, digital PR isn't like that. Digital PR is, you know, it can be quite high risk. Sometimes you can feel like you put a lot of resource into something and you don't get the links you want, or you don't get the value, which, you know, we all know in this case means links. But I think, and I think a lot of it, you know, sometimes it can just be about like, I don't know, you see a lot of memes, don't you, about kind of like the SEO team versus the digital PR team. I've seen it with the Barbie Oppenheimer thing, right? Like, we tend to be quite different types of people, and, you know, I fully understand a lot of SEO teams, you know, the work that goes into tech SEO is I couldn't do it. You know, hands up, absolutely could not do that work. It is detailed. It is, you know, complicated. I would quit. I couldn't do that, you know. And I think they kind of look at us and think we're walking around with these kind of airy ideas, and we've got these kind of, want to do these kind of creative things, and they're like, just let me get on with my important work that is, you know, keeping the website afloat kind of thing. I don't need this kind of, you know, we can be a bit of a distraction, it feels like sometimes. And I appreciate that. And it is about understanding shared goals and all getting in the same room and having those conversations and trying to understand where each other are coming from, you know, what the SEO team needs to make something worthwhile, what the digital PR team needs to make something worthwhile, and what actually overall under the same umbrella we're all gonna get out of it.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. Do you find that there are some industries that are just notoriously difficult to acquire links for, or to carry out a campaign for, digital PR campaign for?
Oh yeah, and I think it goes back again to things like competitiveness. So like online gambling, iGaming, those kind of things. It's really difficult because it's so competitive. As an industry, they've invested massively in digital PR. I suspect a lot of this is kind of thinking about like the long term of where advertising is going for these industries. At least in the UK, where we're likely to see some kind of restrictions on straight advertising in these industries, much like we did with, tobacco and alcohol. So they've invested heavily in digital PR, which means the competition is huge. A lot of the subjects they want to talk about in terms of relevancy, football, for example, again in the UK, is so competitive, and journalists don't need football content, because football content, we've just kicked off again the latest season. Football content is everywhere, right? Yep. It's just, we are saturated with football content. Even I say to the football fan, we are saturated with football content. So you can't knock on a journalist's door and go, I can give you some football content. They go like, well, we've got 16, 17 sports writers here. There's 5 games on today. What are you offering? And you'll see kind of, what you'll see is, like essentially buying time with kind of ex-football stars, football pundits, these kind of things, as digital PRs, doing interviews with them and then outreaching them to the press. So that's kind of the exchange there. They pay for access to the name, to the kind of talent, and then outreach that to the press as a way of cutting through that kind of barrier of how do you kind of provide value in something that is just everywhere already. Anything that's competitive. Again, fashion's quite difficult because fashion is so competitive. Fashion houses spend a lot of money on PR and influencer marketing and those kind of things. So getting links in those markets can be quite difficult. But anything that's kind of sort of swamped really by content or money it can be quite difficult.
Do you have a favorite industry or vertical?
I come from a bit of a tech background. Like I said, I started doing digital PR for a VPN affiliate site. So always kind of a soft spot for tech journalists and the way kind of digital PR works in the tech industry. I think because of, tech experts or experts in these industries, a lot applies to a lot of our everyday lives these days. You would have, we've all seen SEO, the kind of the big AI conversation that's been going on. There's a lot to talk about, and there's a lot of different expertise required in different areas of the press from tech experts and people that understand things like AI and all these things that are, a big part of our lives that many of us don't really understand in depth. So I really like working in the tech space. And then stuff that I'm into personally. I've been working recently on a travel client, which is really nice. I'm into travel. It's a nice fluffy thing to talk about. I've never really worked with any sort of food or drink clients. I think that'd be really fun. Again, like the kind of softer lifestyle stuff, but, yeah, I'm freelance now, so I tend to go where the money goes, right?
Yeah, of course, go where the work is. Journalists,
exactly.
Right? They're very much how can I say this? Concerned or aware of the impacts that AI could have within their industry. Is there such a concern within digital PR and AI?
I think so. I think more, a bit probably again like journalists. I know that in the content marketing and content SEO, people are really worried. And I think that there is reason to be concerned, definitely. But for me, I mean, I think the thing that's a worry for me is not that I don't think AI is going to come and take my job, in the next couple of years, at least. But I do think that AI can cause an increase in, spam, essentially, both spam content online and people spamming journalists. The thing that is making it a very low entry to digital PR, if you can just go and get some content from ChatGPT, send it out and say it's from an expert. Something I've talked about quite a lot when I spoke to people and, is that, faking AI experts is a real danger, both to us as an industry. And also it's just like, you've got to have some moral boundaries around what you do, right? And, eroding the trust between digital PRs and journalists for short-term gain is a really, really self-destructive policy for anyone that works in digital PR. It's a relationship that we need to work. They need it. I talked about the value exchange. They need us. We need them. That relationship needs to be cultivated, and looked after. And when you start to erode trust in any relationship, it breaks down. We all know that. So that's my concern with AI. Not that it's going to pop up and take my job and I'm going to be competing with an AI digital PR, is that we are going to see unscrupulous kind of link builders or using AI to kind of trick journalists or to just spam journalists, and it's going to erode the trust between us as PRs and digital PRs and journalists.
Yeah, on one hand, I see that as a legit concern because, AI, anyone can essentially use AI and create or curate content. And as you mentioned, use it as a almost fake expert sort of hook to get journalists in. On the other hand, I almost want that to happen because it will come back to the whole relationship aspect of digital PR. As you mentioned, without the relationship, there's no connection there. You can't really build that relationship without connecting with journalists or publishers. So it will come down to the real human aspects. And I can see a reality where digital PR specialists are those who focus on relationship building, and publishers will pretty much later ignore the whole, if you like, AI-based request from digital PR folks, which I think will expand the industry, SEO/digital PR, and have a real focus on relationship building, which I think will be for the better. I think that I've heard a lot of people actually from tech SEO, people in the tech SEO industry, and say sort of similar, that they're almost waiting for, let everyone go and stuff their websites full of all this kind of really thin AI content. And then, when Google goes, actually, this is terrible. We're going to do a big algorithm update. We're going to complete, they'll kind of be there to pick up the pieces essentially. And everyone will kind of, there'll be more work for them fixing what AI has done essentially. And they're kind of like, well, let's just sit back with our popcorn, wait for this to happen. And then kind of, we'll fix it because that's what we get paid to do. Right. Essentially, I guess, that could happen with digital PR as well, that you'll see kind of all this kind of really low value content, and people will then need, actual digital PR specialists. They'll need people that have contacts in different industries who can provide, real life experts and real life content. I'm interested, I'm always interested to see where this kind of stuff ends up and what happens. And I think if you work in SEO or digital PR, you're used to the rules changing and the goalposts moving, and that's what keeps it exciting, right? So I'm interested to see what develops with AI and where it goes. Yeah, totally. Joe, if you were to think back to when you started, and what you wish you knew when you started in digital PR, what would that thing be? What you wish you knew that you now know?
Oh, everything. I think this, and I'm going to say this because I think it's probably of value to other people starting out. I don't think I knew how much I knew. So when I started in digital PR, like I said, I wasn't calling it digital PR at the time. It was people weren't really. That came later. I don't think I realised how valuable the skills I had were, and how much I knew and how useful that was. I think particularly when you don't come from a kind of SEO background into digital PR, and you come from a kind of a editorial background, or you kind of feel a bit like, well, shut out a lot of the serious conversations, right? I can't sit and talk about a lot of the complex tech SEO stuff. I don't understand it. It's not my world. I'm not that interested in it either. So I don't think sometimes you kind of don't realize the value of what you do. And I think it's been a really good piece of kind of professional growth for me to kind of understand that actually what I bring to the table and the skills I have are valuable. And that's, I think, particularly for, others in digital PR that are early on in their careers, I want them to know that, and I want them to see the value of what they do and how important it is, both to kind of brands, to websites, to SEO. So I think, I wish I'd had more insight into the value of what I did.
And what were the insights that you uncovered within yourself that led you to realize actually these are actually valuable skill sets or assets that I have to offer?
So I think, one of the things I always remember is sort of going to sort of like conferences for the first time, things like, Brighton SEO, and seeing people from kind of an SEO background to kind of talk about digital PR like it was sort of like magic, like we were sort of these magical unicorns that could, we'd found this magical way to kind of find these precious links. And I was like, well, it's not kind of rocket science, and it's not magic. A lot of it's just being nice to people and being helpful. Like,
that
and
relationship,
I think
right?
I downplayed. Yeah, like I think I downplayed the value of those skills. I remember my first CEO. Like, I remember him outright asking me, I was like, "How do you do this? What is it you're doing to get these links? How are you making this happen?" And just saying to him, "I'm just nice to people." Like, a lot of it is just being polite. Like, and I think he was, am I holding a gun to someone's head? What am I doing to like strong arm these links out of people? I was like, I'm just quite nice. I was a journalist, and it's hard graft being a journalist. I know that, so I try and be helpful. I try and be polite. I try and go out of my way to make their day easier. And then that's what, I get in return, these kind of valuable magical links that everyone's after.
Yeah, it comes down to communication, doesn't it? It's that, again, the relationship building. If you're able to communicate with people, you're able to attain value from it. That in itself is valuable, the ability to communicate. There's an entire industry around communication, right?
Yeah, no, I think it's that, an understanding that under the SEO umbrella, that is a skill and that has value. I don't think I quite understood that very early on. But it does. And it is, like you said, communication is a skill in itself, and being able to do that and build those connections. And like I'll often see other digital PR say this, you always kind of know that you're good at your job, and you're kind of adding value when you'll get a journalist kind of contact you and go, "Hey, I know you work with people in this industry. I'm working on this story. Can you help me? Can you speak to them for me?" When people go, "Actually, I know someone that can help me," and that person is you, and they reach out to you, that's how you know that kind of the way you're doing things is working, essentially.
Totally. If there is one thing you wish business leaders knew about digital PR, what would that one thing be?
So I've just kind of like what I just said, this idea that we don't magic links up. There's quite a lot of sometimes we can make what we do look easy, and it really isn't. And I think that sometimes business leaders then think, well, last month you got a link here and here, and can you do that again this month? I want you to replicate exactly what you did last month, this month. So, okay, but last month there was this massive news story that was relevant to our industry that everyone was talking about for 5 weeks, and we were best placed to comment. We were best placed with data. Short of me instigating that world event again this month, that's not going to happen. They just, that idea that what you do is just can be kind of cookie cutter, and, you can replicate it month on month. How beholden we are to the news cycle and things outside our control. You can work, I work as hard, last month as I do, this month as I do next month, but my results will be wildly different based on a load of variables that, sometimes are out of my control. Things you can plan for. Obviously, I can plan for Christmas. I know that you're going to want Christmas themed stories around Christmas. I can plan for the summer. I can, but you can't plan for news. I thought, obviously.
I love that. You can't plan for news. That's why it's news.
Yeah, I think, that's something we all learned, digital PR's learned in the pandemic, right? When suddenly overnight everyone was working from home. If you'd been if you've been working for 6 months on a campaign about office life, well, that was in the bin. So, you can plan a little bit for the news cycle. Some things come around, like I said, Christmas, heat waves, certain things come around every year, right? Evergreen content or kind of, things that we know will pop up in the news cycle, but you can't plan for actual breaking news. So, I can't replicate something that happened because of something completely out of my control last month.
Totally agree. Joe, thank you so much for your time today. Is there something you would like to promote or shout out? Myself,
essentially. No,
Go for it.
Digital PR, you want to chat about digital PR? I'm available on LinkedIn. I'm available on Twitter. We're talking about Threads now as well. I'm on Threads as well. I'm easily findable on the internet. If you want to talk about digital PR, links for your website, your brand, get in contact and we can have a chat.
Awesome. I'll have those links in the description so people can get in touch with you. Joe, thank you so much for your time today. Have a brilliant day. We'll catch up again another time.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Cheers. Bye now.